All right, let's get started. You're good to go.
All right, hello. We are group number 2, and today we're going to talk about Apple. The representative of this group is Maria, Vera, Brandon, Ethan, Seth. Next slide.
Perfect, exactly. So Apple is one of the most important and influential companies over the last 50 years. They've revolutionized the computer, telecommunications, and countless other industries. They are currently the most profitable non-government owned company in the world. Year after year, they find a way to achieve record high growth. In this presentation, we will be analyzing, assessing, and proposing recommendations for the future. This presentation is especially important as in order for Apple to stay on top of the technology industry, they must invest and strategize extremely well for the future. To begin, I'll go over a quick outline over how this presentation will work. First off, we have the situation analysis, where we will go over the background, statistics, and do a performance analysis from the diverse markets that Apple covers. From there, we'll do an external and internal analysis, where we go over the strengths and weaknesses of the company. From there, we will analyze and assess current markets that Apple is invested in and make recommendations for the future. So just to close the presentation, I'll go over a few last strategic remarks, and then Vera, could you start us off?
Absolutely. Next slide, please. Apple was founded on April 1st, 1976 by Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. The company's first product was the Apple I, a personal computer that was built from off-the-shelf parts. The Apple I was a success, and it helped to establish Apple as a major player in the personal computer market. In 1977, Apple released the Apple II, which was a more powerful and user-friendly computer than the Apple I. In 1984, Apple released the Macintosh computer, which was a graphical user interface computer. The Macintosh was a major innovation at the time, and it helped to make Apple a household name. The Macintosh was also the first computer to come with a mouse, which made it much easier to use than the other computers at that time. Next slide. In 1985, Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, was ousted from the company after a power struggle with the board of the directors. 1980s were a difficult decade for the Apple. The company faced increased competition from other personal computer manufacturers, such as IBM and Microsoft. In 1997, Apple was on the verge of bankruptcy. However, Steve Jobs returned to the company as a CEO, and he helped to turn things around. Jobs introduced a number of new products, such as iMac and the iPod, which helped to revive Apple's fortune. In 2007, Apple released the iPhone, a smartphone that changed the way people use their phones. In 2010, Apple released the iPad, a tablet computer that changed the way people consume media. The iPad was a huge success, and it helped to make Apple the dominant player in the computer market. Apple is still one of the most innovative and successful technology companies in the world. The company continues to release new products that change the way we live and work. In recent years, Apple has released a number of new products, including the Apple Watch, AirPods, HomePod, and the Apple TV. Apple is also investing heavily in new technologies such as artificial intelligence and virtual reality. The company is well positioned to lead the way in the emerging technologies in the years to come. Next slide, please. And right now I'm going to talk a little bit about Apple mission statement and Apple vision. At its core, Apple's mission statement defines the company's fundamental objectives and its unique selling proposition. The Apple's mission is to bring the best personal computing experience to students, educators, creative professionals, and consumers around the world through our innovative hardware, software, and internet offerings. Statement demonstrates the company's firm commitment to producing exceptional quality products, not only in design, but also in functionalities. The statement provides the insights into Apple's ambition to have a global footprint, indicating their intent not just to dominate the American tech scene, but also to leave mark worldwide. Apple's vision statement is, "We believe that we are on the face of the earth to make great products, and that's not changing." It signals Apple's commitment to continuously innovate and create high-quality products. The vision aligns perfectly with Apple's unique approach to product design and development, ensuring consistent delivery of superior goods that satisfy customers' needs and preferences. Next slide.
So I'm going to talk about the Apple's industry. So as we can see that the country of origin is the United States, and as we stated previously, the company was founded in 1976. The IPO date was December 12, 1980, and the CEO of the company is Timothy Cook. The industry is consumer electronics, and the sector is the technology. Currently, employees about 161,000 people. So physical address of the company is United States, California, and 1 Apple Parkway. Now, if we're talking about the stock details, the ticker symbol of the Apple is AAPL. The exchange is NASDAQ, and the fiscal year of Apple is actually October to September. The reporting currency is USD dollars. Could you please go next slide? So Apple Store Empire, it's interesting because Apple launched its online first shop in 1977, but the first 2 physically open stores were opened on May 19, 2001. And what's interesting, it was found in California and also in Tysons, Virginia. So now, as of 2021, we can see that empire of Apple is grows tremendously. We have about 500 establishments, and over 50% of those are actually in the United States. The second highest total 50 stores are located in China, and the third was United Kingdom, where it's 38 Apple stores. Next slide, please. Now I'm talking about the Apple's performance analysis. Apple is one of the companies that actually have changed the way people perceive technology today. So some interesting facts about Apple is that Apple makes nearly $2,000 every second. Also, Apple is the 4th largest personal computer vendor by unit sales and 2nd largest mobile phone manufacturer. So Apple, because of the wide variety of services and products, competes with different kind of, obviously, companies. Apple competes in smartphones, in computers, and in digital streaming. If we're talking about competitors of Apple in smartphones, that would be one of the biggest one would be Samsung. Then it would be the Xiaomi, the company in China, and also the Oppo Mobile Telecommunication Corporation. The other one would be the Vivo Communication Technology, also in Chinese multinational technology company. To summarize, between all those companies and Apple, we can see that Apple phones are supreme build quality as compared to its competitors. It's much better. Apple's phones lag in memory storage, and costs are expensive to extend that storage space as compared to the competitors. Also, Apple phones may charge slower, but because of optimized iOS, it compensates for that performance. Camera quality of Apple compared to its competitors is way higher. It's very premium. So if we're talking about the competitors of Apple, could you go next slide? Competitors of Apple in computers, that would be Lenovo, that would be HP, Dell, what's interesting, Apple's laptops have the best heating mechanism compared to its competitors. Apple laptops are costly as compared to other brands, but many people with budget constraints purchase, that's why, other brands. The Mac OS in Apple laptops is superior and highly optimized for heavily multitasking. Apple laptops have a strong build quality, and only HP can provide good quality along with Lenovo in the ThinkPad series. Now, next slide, please. Some of the competitors of Apple in digital streaming would be Netflix, the Disney Plus, and Apple Plus. What's interesting that Apple is way behind in digital streaming compared to its competitors, but for obvious reason. The primary reason is that this is not Apple's primary market. But the other companies are way ahead of Apple, and probably Apple won't even directly compare with them anytime sooner because this is not their biggest priority. Yeah, next slide.
All right, so I will be talking about the external analysis now. So I'll start with PESTEL. PESTEL stands for political, economic, sociocultural, technological, environmental, and legal. So to start off with the political, you have trade policies. All Apple products are manufactured outside of the US, primarily in China. The trade war between the US and China warranted Apple to move manufacturing to India. And stuff like trade policy that can include like tariffs, things like that, like an extra fee that Apple has to pay in order to import products. And then you have political stability. Unrest in the countries of manufacturing could risk production issues. Like there could very easily be political instability in lesser developed countries like India or China. And then the U.S. Department of Justice, Apple has had constant battles with the DOJ regarding Apple's monopoly in the tech industry. RCS and the App Store restricting app publishers' revenue share. For economic, we have global economic growth. When the economy is thriving, it includes the increased consumer spending on Apple products. Conversely, when the economy is declining or in a recession, Apple sees a smaller sales volume. Like many people won't buy as many Apple products if they don't have as much money to spend. And then you have currency fluctuations. When the value of the US dollar fluctuates, it affects Apple's international revenue. And you have interest rates. Increases in the interest rates can make it more difficult for Apple to borrow money and to make expansions. For sociocultural, you have consumer preferences. With consumer preferences constantly changing, it influences what Apple spends its time researching and developing. This can include device shape, size, and features. And we also have demographics. Different demographics have different needs. For example, Apple may make improvements to the MacBook for young professionals. And then also, despite most population no longer using it, the iPad mini is very useful for pilots. So Apple makes a lot of different products that are useful to different people. Apple has become increasingly less dependent on chip manufacturers as they begin to manufacture their own processing and graphical chipsets. Then you have artificial intelligence. Apple's been trying to keep up with AI innovations. They just budgeted $1 billion into AI ventures. And then you have virtual and augmented reality. Apple recently just released their first generation Apple Vision Pro headset. For environmental, you have sustainability concerns. There's mounting pressure for Apple to reduce their environmental impact and adopt eco-friendly practices. Notably, it discontinued its leather cases during an event in 2023, and they have also pledged to be carbon neutral by 2030. You also have regulations on resource usage. Regulations on material and energy consumption can increase production and manufacturing costs for Apple. And lastly, we have legal. Like we mentioned previously, we have the battles with the DOJ. We have intellectual property. Apple actively enforces its IP rights to prevent competitors from emerging or copying them. And then data and privacy. Big tech has been ostracized with the security of consumer data. Apple is no exception. They have used data protection as a marketing feature in their iOS lineup that allows the user to disable data sharing in their apps.
All right, thank you, Ethan. So I'll cover the internal analysis now. And then just so you guys know, I've been timing this. We're about 15 minutes in. So yeah, let's keep going. So resources internally, Apple has a ton of cash on hand. They have a lot of liquidity. Their cash reserves, according to their most recent 10K, is $29.9 billion, largest cash reserve in all world businesses. That's pretty remarkable, honestly. Intangible resources, human capital. They have world-class talented employees. Apple has, I believe, out of all their applicants, like probably about 1 or 2% actually get a job offer and work for Apple. They only recruit the top of the top, the 1% of the 1%. They have a lot of talented employees. Intellectual property, IP, they have a lot of patents and they have a lot of ideas for the future. Anything that they can patent and copyright, they will. Let's see. So if we do a VRIN analysis, as you can see on the top, labels valuable, rare, imitable, and non-substitutable. You can see we did their cash reserves, real estate, human capital, and IP. I won't go into this too much. Professor, if you want to pause and read through our analysis, you can. And then a SWOT analysis. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's a very basic overview of a company, a quick snapshot of how they're performing and their current state. So strengths, Apple has a ton of cash on hand, which we discussed. This gives them a big advantage to make valuable investments, but to also spend that money for capital expenditures to perhaps beta test a new product or anything like that. Another strength, Apple has a very loyal user base and brand recognition. Most people know who Apple is, and a lot of people have iPhones. Apple's no mystery. People know who they are and what they do. Apple quickly adapts to its changing demographics, meaning they make groundbreaking innovations. Weaknesses that they have, Apple's Office suite is subpar compared to the Microsoft Office or Google Workspace. Microsoft Office has been around since the 90s, ever since Windows 96, and almost every office and any workplace uses it, including universities and it does cost money, but also Google offers their own Office free, and it's all cloud-based, so it's all in the cloud and accessible from anywhere. And Apple's Office suite, no one really uses. They have suite apps like Pages, Keynote, which is like a PowerPoint presentation, Numbers, which is data analytics. The point is no one uses it, and it's a big weakness for them. They haven't really tried to penetrate the market share for Office suites. The next weakness, Apple's app development software is hard to work with. Many developers would rather make apps for Android. So Apple changes their platform a lot. Back in the early days of iPhone, they used Objective-C, and in 2014, they switched to Swift. I don't know what it is now, but app development is kind of a nightmare for Apple, for its developers. The next weakness, Apple is sometimes too ambitious with their innovations. Example given, the Apple Car. Unfortunately, I think it was about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, they discontinued research and development on the Apple Car. So opportunities, there's an emerging market for augmented reality that Apple is taking advantage of, most notable being the Apple Vision Pro, their first generation coming out, I think, in January of this year. The next opportunity, Apple has a set $1 billion budget for artificial intelligence R&D. Awesome. That's the next emerging thing. So they're taking advantage of that opportunity by deploying a lot of capital for that. The next opportunity, Apple is taking advantage of emerging international markets. So they're going around the world. Some threats, changes in trade policy can negatively impact Apple's manufacturing. Like we discussed, most notably the trade war between China and the USA has caused Apple to have to shift, and that threatened their manufacturing just for a little bit, and also their importing to the United States. Next threat is the US dollar is at risk of fluctuating, which affects Apple's international sales. And the last threat, consumer preferences are changing faster than ever before. This can make it challenging for Apple to stay ahead of the curve. So as the consumers are more demanding on what they want in their products, Apple's got to keep up with that so that they can keep their market share percentage. Assessment, so Apple has the largest cash reserve out of all world businesses, and they have an abundant amount of current assets, aka liquidity. This presents a great opportunity to deploy abundant amounts of capital to new ventures in existing and non-existing technologies. Their income statement shows efficient operations with an EBITDA margin of 29.8%. It means they're very efficient in their operations. and growing sales in products such as devices, computers, and hardware, and services such as subscription services as Apple TV Plus, Apple Music, and iCloud. With their abundant liquidity, efficiency of operations, and market share/loyalty, they can virtually pursue any venture and even suffer abundant losses while remaining profitable and maintaining their customer loyalty. So recommendation, because Apple has the largest cash reserve, it would be best in their best interest to invest in an emerging market. Apple should use their cash to invest in AI. Both Samsung and Google have invested resources in AI. It would be best for Apple to also follow suit. One way Apple can implement their AI is via Siri. Siri has not had any significant upgrades in a few years, and most people would describe it as subpar. It works, personally for me, it works half the time. Apple can develop its own AI to compete with Google and OpenAI while making drastic improvements to a seemingly neglected product. And next is Seth for strategic overview.
Perfect. Yeah, just to close this presentation out, I'll just go over a few strategic slides here. So first, their current strategies that they're using, their strategic in their strategy is just their premium price, buyer loyalty, prioritizing aesthetics, focusing on cutting edge technology, seamless integration across devices, and exclusive software and services. And they implemented these strategies over time, starting at the turn of the century. Ever since the announcement of the iPod and the iPhone, they have slowly built these strategies and have found great success in them. In accordance to our external and internal analyses, these strategies are highly successful. Through these strategies, they have turned themselves into the most profitable non-government owned company in the world over the past 25 years. Next slide. So their current competitive position, their differentiations from their competition is their premium products, as well as their distinct branding, their vertical integration, also their focus on the target market, as well as their high profit margins, and investing in research and development, as well as their diversification of their products. Now, their key competitors, we've kind of gone over them throughout the presentation, but I'd like to put them in one final place, and that would be Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Samsung, Sony, Dell, IBM, and HP. Those are their main competitors. However, there are other ones and smaller fish to fry. These differentiations have certainly worked. It appears that through trial and error, they have found these ways to position themselves competitively. Apple has built up such brand loyalty that there are many customers that will only purchase technology from their brand. They have set themselves apart from the competition in these ways that I've mentioned, and it yields high growth for them year after year. Let's go to the next one. So just in conclusion, although in the 1990s, Apple was under immense financial struggles and almost went under, since then, they've implanted a winning strategy through external analysis, internal analysis, and competitive analysis. All indications show that Apple will continue on their current trajectory. Through their focus on research and development, they can make sure that they stay on the cutting edge of technology. Through our recommendation to focus more on Apple AI for customers, Apple can ensure growth in the future. If they can pair an Apple AI with a new wearable augmented reality tech, they will quite literally be the leading company in technology. Apple will need to continue their current strategy and continue to lead the way in technology. If they can achieve those parameters for success, Apple will continue its growth into the future. Next slide. So that's pretty much it. We just have our references here up on the screen for you. And yeah, perfect. Thank you.
We're done. Yay.
How much time is that?
So I got 24 and a half minutes on that.
Perfect.
Stop recording.
I think he'll knock us for going over, Willie.
Oh.
Worst case
also
scenario.
we need to edit some stuff out anyway.